Since first becoming well known in the 18th century, organized crime in Italy and its criminal organizations have infiltrated the social and economic life of many regions, particularly in southern Italy, the most notorious of which is the Sicilian Mafia, which would later expand into some foreign countries, especially the United States. 5 principal mafia-like organizations are known to exist in Italy: Cosa Nostra of Sicily, Ndrangheta of Calabria, who are considered to be among the biggest cocaine smugglers in Europe, and Camorra of Naples, are the oldest of the 5, having started to develop between 1500 and 1800. In the 20th century, 2 new criminal organizations, Stidda and Sacra Unita of Apulia, were created. The latest creation of Italian organized crime, Mafia Capital, has recently been disbanded by the police. Sicilian Mafia. Based primarily in Sicily, the Sicilian Mafia formed in the mid-19th century by clans which sprang out of groups of bandits. These groups gained local power and influence. In Sicily, the word mafia tends to mean manly, and a mafioso considers himself a man of honor. Quote, however, the organization is known as Cosa Nostra, our thing, or our affair. The Sicilian Mafia originally engaged in such low-level activities as extortion, cattle theft and, upon Sicily becoming part of a democratic Italy, election slugging in addition to other kinds of relatively low-level theft and fraud. In the 1950s, Sicily experienced a massive building boom. Taking advantage of the opportunity, the Sicilian Mafia gained control of the building contracts and made millions of dollars. It participated in the growing business of large-scale heroin trafficking, both in Italy and Europe, and in US-connected trafficking. A famous example of this are the French connection smuggling with Corsican criminals, and the Italian-American Mafia. Today, the Sicilian Mafia has evolved into an international organized crime group. The Sicilian Mafia specializes in heroin trafficking, political corruption and military arms trafficking, and is the most powerful and most active Italian organized crime group in the United States, with estimates of more than 2,500 Sicilian Mafia affiliates located there. The Sicilian Mafia is also known to engage in arson, frauds, counterfeiting, and other racketeering crimes. It is estimated to have 3,500–4,000 core members with 100 clans, with around 50 in the city of Palermo alone. The Sicilian Mafia has had influence in legitimate power, particularly under the corrupt Christian democratic governments from the 50s early 90s. It has had influence with lawyers, financiers, and professionals. Also, it has had power and resources by bribing or pressuring politicians, judges and administrators. It has less of these now than previously on the heels of the Maxi trials, the campaign by magistrates Giovanni Falcone and Paolo Borsellino, and other actions against corrupt politicians and judges. However, it retains some influence. The Sicilian Mafia became infamous for aggressive assaults on Italian law enforcement officials during the reign of Toto Riina. In Sicily, the term excellent cadaver is used to distinguish the assassination of prominent government officials from the common criminals and ordinary citizens killed by the Mafia. Some of the high-ranking victims include police commissioners, mayors, judges, police colonels and generals, and parliament members. On May 23, 1992, the Sicilian Mafia struck Italian law enforcement. At approximately 6:00 p.m., Italian magistrate Giovanni Falcone, his wife, and 3 police bodyguards were killed by a massive bomb. Falcone, director of prosecutions and for the Court of Palermo and head of the Special Anti-Mafia Investigative Squad, had become the organization's most formidable enemy. His team was moving to prepare cases against most of the mafia leadership. The bomb made a crater 30 feet in diameter in the road Falcone's caravan was traveling. This became known as the Capaci massacre. Less than 2 months later, on July 19, 1992, the Mafia struck Falcone's replacement, Judge Paolo Borsellino, also in Palermo, Sicily. Borsellino and 5 bodyguards were killed outside the apartment of Borsellino's mother when a car packed with explosives was detonated by remote control as the judge approached the front door of his mother's apartment. In 1993, the authorities arrested Salvatore Toto Riina, believed at the time to be the capo di tutti capi and responsible directly or indirectly for scores if not hundreds of killings. After years of investigation which some believe was delayed by mafia influence within the police and carabinieri, after Riina's arrest, control of the organization fell to Bernardo Provenzano, who had come to reject Riina's strategy of war against the authorities, in favor of a strategy of bribery, corruption and influence peddling. As a consequence, the rate of mafia killings fell sharply, but mafia influence not only in the international drug and white slavery trade but locally, in construction and public contracts in Sicily continued. Provenzano was himself captured in 2006 after being wanted for 43 years. In July 2013, the Italian police conducted sweeping raids targeting top mafia crime bosses. In Ostia, a coastal community near the capital, police arrested 51 suspects for alleged crimes connected with Italy's Sicilian Mafia. Allegations included extortion, murder, international drug trafficking and illegal control of the slot machine market. Stidda is the name given to the Sicilian organization started by criminals Giuseppe Croce Benevento and Salvatore Califato, both of Parma di Montechiaro, Agrigento province. The Stidda's power bases are centered in the cities of Gela and Favara, Caltanissetta and Agrigento provinces. The organization's groups and activities have flourished in the cities of Agrigento, Catania, Syracuse and Enna in the provinces of the same name, Niscemi and Risi of Caltanissetta province and Vittoria of Ragusa province, located mainly on the southern and eastern coasts of Sicily. The Stidda has extended its power and influence into the mainland Italy provinces of Milano, Genova and Torino. The members of the organization are called Stiddari in Caltanissetta province and Stidrali in Agrigento province. Stidda members can be identified and sometimes introduced to each other by a tattoo of 5 greenish marks arranged in a circle, forming a star called I Punti della Malavita, or the points of the criminal life. The Cosa Nostra wars of the late 1970s and early 1980s that brought the Corleonesi clan and its vicious and ruthless leaders Luciano Leggio, Toto Riina and Bernardo Provenzano, sometimes referred to as Cosa Nuova, into power caused disorganization and disenchantment inside the traditional Cosa Nostra power base and values system, leaving the growing Stidda organization to counter Cosa Nostra's power, influence and expansion in southern and eastern Sicily. The Stidda membership was reinforced by Cosa Nostra men of honor such as those loyal to slain Capo Giuseppe di Cristina of Risi, who had defected from Cosa Nostra's ranks due to the bloodthirsty reign of the Corleonesi clan. The organization also looked to enlarge its membership by absorbing local thugs and criminals who were at the margins of organized crime to gain more power and credibility in the Italian underworld. From 1978 to 1990, a former Corleonese clan leader and pretender to the Cosa Nostra's capo di tutti I capi title, Totorina, waged a war within Cosa Nostra and against the Stidda, spreading death and terror among mafiosi and the public in his quest for a crime dictatorship, leaving over 500 in Cosa Nostra and over 1,000 in Stidda dead, including Stidda capos Calogero Lauria and Vincenzo Spina. With the 1993 capture and imprisonment of Totorina, along with the currently jailed Bernardo Provenzano's Pax Mafia, following a new, less violent and low-key approach to criminal activities, the Stidda has gained power, influence and credibility among the longer-established criminal organizations within Italy and around the world, making itself an underworld player in the United States, Canada and Germany. The Stidda is sometimes called the Fifth Mafia in the Italian media and press. Camorra Campanian Mafia. The word Camorra means gang. The Camorra first appeared in the mid-1800s in Naples, Campania, Italy, as a prison gang. Once released, members formed clans in the cities and continued to grow in power. The Camorra has more than 100 clans and approximately 7,000 members, making it the largest and most violent of the Italian organized crime groups. The Camorra made its fortune in Reconstruction after a powerful earthquake ravaged the Campania region in 1980. The Camorra is considered the second largest IOC group with over 100 clans and approximately 7,000 members. The Camorra specializes in cigarette smuggling and receives payoffs from other criminal groups for any cigarette traffic through Italy. In the 1970s, the Sicilian Mafia convinced the Camorra to convert the cigarette smuggling routes into drug smuggling routes with the Sicilian Mafia's assistance. But not all Camorra leaders agreed. This brought about the Camorra Wars between two factions and almost 400 men were murdered. Those opposed to drug trafficking lost the war. It is believed that nearly 200 Camorra affiliates reside in the United States. Many came to the USA during the Camorra Wars ever since the 19th century, as proved by an old organization best known as Black Hand. The Camorra conducts money laundering, extortion, alien smuggling, robbery, blackmail, kidnapping, political corruption, and counterfeiting. Some believe it is now the strongest mafia in Italy. Ndrangheta of Calabrian Mafia, derived from the Greek word Ndrangheta meaning courage or loyalty. The Ndrangheta formed in the 1850s. The Ndrangheta consists of 160 cells and approximately 6,000 members. Worldwide, some estimate that to be as many as 10,000 core members and specializes in kidnapping and political corruption. The Ndrangheta cells are loosely connected family groups based on blood relationships and marriages. Ndrangheta presence in the United States is estimated between 100 and 200 members and associates. The majority of that presence is in New York and Florida. The Ndrangheta is also known to engage in cocaine and heroin trafficking, murder, bombings, counterfeiting, illegal gambling, frauds, thefts, labor racketeering, loan sharking, illegal immigration, and kidnapping. Basileus. The Basileus are a mafia organization founded in 1994 in Potenza. It's sometimes called Italy's Fifth Mafia. This organization has assumed a role for the control of illegal activities in the region. They are believed to be an independently run Ndrangheta from the Rossano alliance involving 5 clans in the provinces of Reggio Calabria and Apulia, Tauro Plain. Not a lot is known of them. There is another belief that this group was created by local crime bosses and criminals with the help of the peasant Serrano and Ndrangheta clans from Rossano in the northern and western areas of the region of Calabria, and so would more than likely be smuggling drugs and arms up Italy into the rest of Italy for these clans. Sacra Corona Unita. Sacra Corona Unita, or United Sacred Crown, is a mafia-like criminal organization from the region of Apulia in southern Italy, and is especially active in the areas of Brindisi and Lecce and not, as people tend to believe, in the region as a whole. The SCU was originally founded in the late 1970s as the Nuova Grande Camorra Pugliese, based in Foggia, by the Camorra member Raffaele Cartolo, who wanted to expand his operations into Apulia. It has also been suggested that elements of this group originated from the Ndrangheta, but it is not known if they were breakaways from it as the result of indirect cooperation with clans of the Ndrangheta. A few years after the creation of the SCU, following the downfall of Cartolo, the organization began to operate independently from the Camorra under the leadership of Giuseppe Rogoli. Under his leadership, the SCU mixed its Apulian interests and opportunities with Ndrangheta and Camorra traditions. Originally preying on the region's substantial wine and olive oil industries, the group moved into fraud, gun running, and drug trafficking, and made alliances with international criminal organizations such as the Russian and Albanian mafias, the Colombian drug cartels, and some Asian organizations. The Sacra Corona Unita consists of about 50 clans with approximately 2,000 core members and specializes in smuggling cigarettes, drugs, arms, and people. Very few SCU members have been identified in the United States, however there are some links to individuals in Illinois, Florida, and possibly New York. The Sacra Corona Unita is also reported to be involved in money laundering, extortion, and political corruption, and collects payoffs from other criminal groups for landing rights on the southeast coast of Italy. This territory is a natural gateway for smuggling to and from post-communist countries like Croatia, Montenegro, and Albania, with the decreasing importance of the Adriatic corridor as a smuggling route and a series of successful police and judicial operations against it. In recent years, the Sacra Corona Unita has been considered, if not actually defeated, to be reduced to a fraction of its former power, which peaked around the mid-1990s. Local rivals. The internal difficulties of the SCU aided the birth of antagonistic criminal groups such as Remo Lecce Libera, formed by some leading criminal figures from Lecce, who claim to be independent from any criminal group other than the Ndrangheta. The term Remo indicates Remo Morello, a criminal from the Salento area, killed by criminals from the Campania region because he opposed any external interference. Nuova Famiglia Salentina, formed in 1986 by De Matteis Pantlio, from Lecce and stemming from the Famiglia Salentina Libera, born in the early 1980s as an autonomous criminal movement in the Salento area with no links with extra-regional mafia expressions. Rosa dei Venti, formed in 1990 by De Tomasi in the Lecce prison, following an internal division in the SCU. Mala del Brenta. The Mala del Brenta, also known as the Mala del Piavese or Mala Vita del Brenta, was in operation throughout the Veneto region, across northern Italy and into Croatia, Yugoslavia, Malta, Hungary, and possibly Austria in the 1970s and 1980s. There is a debate if this organization shall be considered a mafia-like organization, even if, according to Article 416 bis CP, introduced into Italy in 1982, it falls into the category of mafia-type organization, displaying some of the characteristics described therein. This is in spite of its origins in the northern Italian region of the Veneto, and its North Italian membership base, having originally spawned from the southern Italian organized crime syndicates, who had operated and infiltrated the Veneto region during the 1970s. The vision of unifying Veneto banditry into a mafia-style syndicate was first realized under the leadership of Felice Angelface Maniero. Throughout the 1980s and 90s, these original Sicilian mafiosi controlled much of the mafia activity in the Veneto throughout the 60s and 70s, and included most notably Salvatore Totuccio, Contorno, Gaetano Fidanzati, Antonino Duca and Gaetano and Amp, Salvatore Badalamenti and Giuseppe Madonia, Venetia Malavitosi, or underworld figures and bandits, learned from these Sicilians the necessary means for organizing themselves and taking the reins of control from the successive 2 decades, sometimes referred to as the fifth and smallest of the mafia organizations across Italy during its existence. It operated under the sanction of the Corleonesi clan from Sicily and had strong links with other mafia families, such as Cosa Nostra, Ndrangheta, Camorra and Sacra. Unita. Banda della Magliana. The Banda della Magliana was an Italian criminal organization based in Rome and active mostly throughout the late 1970s until the early 1990s. The gang's name refers to the neighborhood in Rome, the Magliana, from which most of its members came. The Banda della Magliana was involved in criminal activities during the Italian years of lead. The organization was tied to other Italian criminal organizations such as the Cosa Nostra, Camorra and the Ndrangheta, but it was also notably connected to neo-fascist paramilitary and terrorist organizations including the Nuclei Armati Rivoluzionari, the neo-fascist group responsible for the 1980 Bologna massacre, in addition to their involvement in traditional organized crime rackets. The Banda della Magliana is also believed to have worked for the Italian secret services and political figures such as Licio Gethli, Grand Master of the illegal and underground Freemason lodge known as Propaganda Jew, all of which were purportedly connected to neo-fascist and far-right and militant paramilitary groups. Mafia Capital. The Mafia Capital was an Italian mafia-type crime syndicate, or secret society, that originated in the region of Lazio and its capital Rome. Founded in early 2000s by Massimo Carminati on the ashes of Banda della Magliana. Italian crime in U.S. and other foreign countries. Those currently active in the United States of the Sicilian Mafia, Camorra, and Neapolitan Mafia, Ndrangheta, a Calabrian Mafia, and Sacra Unita or United Sacred Crown. The FBI refers to them as Italian organized crime. The FBI estimates the size of the 4 IOC groups to be approximately 25,000 members and 250,000 affiliates worldwide. There are more than 3,000 members and affiliates in the United States, scattered mostly throughout the major cities in the Northeast, the Midwest, California, and the South. However, the largest presence centers around Boston, New York, northern New Jersey, and Philadelphia. Their criminal activities are international with members and affiliates in Canada, South America, Australia, and parts of Europe. These organizations are also known to collaborate with other international organized crime groups from all over the world. The Italians' gangs have also connections with the Corsican gangs. This collaboration were mostly important during the French Connection era. During the 90s, the links between the Corsican Mafia and the Sicilian Mafia permitted an establishment of some Sicilians gangsters in the Lavezzi Islands. The major threat to American society posed by IOC groups centers around drug trafficking and money laundering. IOC groups have been involved in heroin trafficking for decades. 2 major investigations which targeted IOC drug trafficking in the 1980s are known as the French Connection and Pizza Connection. These and other investigations have documented the cooperation in drug trafficking with other major drug trafficking organizations. IOC groups are also involved in illegal gambling, political corruption, extortion, kidnapping, frauds, counterfeiting, infiltration of legitimate businesses, murders, bombings, and weapons trafficking. Industry experts in Italy estimate that the worldwide criminal activity is worth more than $100 billion annually. Non-Italian criminal groups in Italy. There is a small number of similar criminal organizations operating in Italy but based outside of Italy, are composed of non-Italians living in Italy, such as the Chinese triads, Russian, Georgian and Israeli networks, African gangs, and Balkan crime groups, including the Greek, Serbian, Romanian, Bulgarian, Montenegrin and the Albanian Mafia, the last of which seems to be the most prominently expanding in recent years. The Albanian gangs mainly operate in not only Albania but also notably in Italy, especially the more affluent northern parts of Italy. All these organizations operate mostly in prostitution under the permission and the control of the Italian organized crime groups.